Spain's direct involvement in Indonesia was minimal compared to the influence of other European powers, such as the Dutch, British, and Portuguese, but Spain did engage in some interactions with the region, especially during the 16th and 17th centuries. Spain's interest in Southeast Asia was part of its broader ambitions to control trade routes and resources in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. At the time, Spain's primary colonial focus was on the Philippines, which they had colonized in 1565, and they saw Indonesia as a region that could be integrated into their vast global empire, although they never established a significant colonial presence in Indonesia itself. In the early 16th century, Spanish explorers, such as Ferdinand Magellan, were among the first Europeans to arrive in Southeast Asia. Magellan's expedition, which was sponsored by Spain, made a significant stop in the Philippines, which became a Spanish colony after his death. While Magellan's journey did not lead to a formal colonization of Indonesia, it brought Spain into direct contact with the archipelago. Spain began to explore the potential for trade with the islands of Indonesia, particularly in spices, which were highly coveted in Europe at the time. The spice trade was a primary motivator for European exploration and colonization in the region. However, Spain faced stiff competition in Southeast Asia, particularly from the Portuguese and the Dutch. The Portuguese had established a foothold in Indonesia in the early 16th century, setting up trading posts and fortresses in key locations like Maluku, the Spice Islands, which were the center of the lucrative spice trade. The Spanish and Portuguese rivalry led to an agreement in 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas, which divided the world into Spanish and Portuguese spheres of influence. Under this treaty, the Philippines fell under Spanish control, while the Portuguese took the lead in the spice trade in Indonesia, especially in Malacca and the Eastern Islands. Though Spain never achieved direct colonization of Indonesia, it did influence the region through its position in the Philippines. Spanish-controlled Manila became a major hub for trade between the Americas, China, and Southeast Asia. Spanish ships, part of the galleon trade, traveled between Manila and Acapulco, Mexico, exchanging goods, including spices from Indonesia. This indirect connection helped Spain maintain a degree of influence over the broader Southeast Asian trade networks, even though the Dutch and Portuguese controlled the main spice-producing areas in Indonesia. The Spanish also attempted to extend their influence in the Moluccas, but were eventually pushed out by Dutch forces, who had more substantial military power in the region. While Spain never colonized Indonesia in the way the Dutch did, its presence in the Philippines and the broader Southeast Asian region contributed to the global trade dynamics that shaped Indonesia's history. The rivalry between European powers for control of trade routes and resources in Southeast Asia was a significant factor in the development of colonial rule in Indonesia. In the long run, it was the Dutch who would dominate the region, but Spain's interactions with the Indonesian archipelago, primarily through trade and the competition with Portugal and the Dutch, helped shape the broader geopolitical landscape in Southeast Asia during the Age of Exploration.